Good morning. Now to the demonstration part of this presentation. Just to show you a bit about materials. As you start to learn to draw, you can start with the simplest materials, being a piece of paper and a pencil. Number 2 pencil is fine. As you progress, you might want to be able to do more shading and more subtle effects, in which case an actual art drawing pencil such as Faber-Castell might be something you would like. It would be useful. If you're drawing with pen, just any simple pen. I know many artists who just draw with a ballpoint. If you're wanting to have ink that doesn't smear or is waterproof, this is a very simple, inexpensive pen. It's the Uniball Vision, and it is waterproof. Paper, like I said, can be just a piece of computer paper. As you're getting better and want to be able to shade and do other effects, you will want to have some art sketching paper. I do ink and watercolor, or line and wash as it's called, and I prefer 100% cotton paper. As one of my teachers recently said, you can do a bad painting on good paper, but you can't do a good painting on bad paper. So I have tried a lot of paper and come up with 100% watercolor paper. Normally I would draw in the museum. I would find a subject, walk around it, find the best point of view for it, and then sit down and draw it. We can't do that here or now yet, so I'm going to be drawing from this photograph. And it's pretty complex, so it may get a bit wonky. And that's okay. As I said, it's embrace the wonkiness. It's the experience that is part of the importance of drawing. I'm going to start with a mechanical pencil. I do a little pencil just to block out where things are supposed to be. And just to kind of get the idea of where the ends of things are and how big they are. Some people draw by shapes. I tend to draw more in a relational manner, like how far is this from this line? And where does this start here? Have I got the right angle? How far does this go into the body of the aircraft? There's a tail hook. It looks like it needs to be a little thicker. So I do use an eraser. This is what's called a kneaded eraser. It comes in a square, and then you just squish it. And it is good because it does less damage to the texture of the paper. Because the watercolor paper that I use is quite textured. It's called cold press, so that it can do nice things with the water. And where does this wing come up? About this needs to be taller. All right. I use a fountain pen. It's a little less environmentally unfriendly. I use bottled ink so that I'm not throwing away cartridges. I like the kind of line I can get with a fountain pen. I use a fine nib, but you can get lots of other size nibs. Nib, of course, is the end of the pen. I'm just roughing in a few things. One way to also do this is to make dots. I have kind of drawn a little more pencil than I often do. And again, relational shapes. And sometimes I'm not real exact. I do want to figure out where this wheel goes. And ellipses. Ugh. Still not very good at ellipses. Need to practice more. But you get the idea. So where does this wing come in? One thing about doing the drawing is draw foreground items first, because there will be background items that they overlap. And there's sort of a little port here. Draw. I hold the pen about here. Some people hold it really tight. That's not so good. Loosely, it's a good idea to kind of draw from the elbow or the shoulder rather than just from the wrist. Draw one continuous line, not little scratches. I'm trying to do this fairly quickly because I don't have that much time on my recording camera, and I don't want to take up a lot of the time for the demo from the talk. There's some ornament there. I can use the pen to darken in some areas. Oh, we need this wing. Ah, yes. So it's about here. You can practice the line a little bit. It comes about. I'm doing the dots. Maybe not. Didn't quite get the shape. That's all right. It's just a little wonky. And there is another wheel there, and then the tail wheel. Can't see it very well in the, so I'm not going to worry about it. Just scribble. Okay. Maybe draw these in a little better. Put a little bit of dark. Some values I do with the pen, some I do with the paint. But one does want a variety of darks and lights. Watercolor is a medium that goes from light to dark. So I have to plan what goes in first. Because I will be painting over, this bit right here. Over, cross-hatching? Hatching, not cross-hatching. All right, now, erase a bit. And you can see the ink is already dry. I use an ink that is from a company called Platinum. And the ink is carbon black. It is very black. It is waterproof, and it dries really quickly so that I can work quickly. I usually will get a sketch done in about a half an hour. So I will use in the museum I will use water brushes. Outside, I would like to use a container and a real brush. These are not the greatest brushes. They're just a little plastic filament, but they're very convenient for places where you might be worrying about spilling water and having the brush flying water everywhere. So the water is contained in the reservoir. You just squeeze it to get a drop out, and then you squeeze it and wipe it to change colors. I have a watercolor palette. I like to make my own. This came empty, and I used what are called half pans, which are these little squares. I filled it with Daniel Smith watercolor paint, some of the best in the world, and it's made just up the street. I keep my palette dirty because I like to mix things with the existing paint. It's called palette mud. So I have 3 sizes of water brush. Oh, right, I wanted to put that little line in. That's the yellow, because I'm going to use a watercolor pencil. Just put that in now. So it goes in like colored pencil, and you can just use it and leave it that way. But you also can use a brush to activate it, and you can see the difference. And some people just use watercolor brushes. They don't use watercolor pencils. They don't use the pans. All right, so bigger brush. I have 3 sizes. And this has some camouflage. I have a large pan that I mixed some custom color when I was doing my series on the B52. So it's a little more dark OD green. I'm gonna just throw this in quickly, not worrying too much about what goes where. Trying to show it a little bit. Oops, yeah, I missed a spot. Need a little more water. And I'm just violated my advice to start with the lights. I started dark. Oh, previous version I started correctly. Oh well. Just have to wait for it to dry a little more. Oops. So blot out some because I went too far. Just put some water on it, blot it, take it out. This goes here. Out of that. Right. So while one part is drying, I move to another section. A lot of people use sketchbooks. Mine is sort of a sketchbook, but it's I can remove the papers from it. And as I said, paper is another long lecture. Whoops, it's a little too dry, that bit of paint. So I'm mixing the color for the lighter color on the, needs to be more tan, a little more sienna. I'm going to go right over that little port because I can put a darker color over it. Oh, I forgot about this. So this is a bit lighter because it does have some reflection. switching brushes. See if we can get that a little bit lighter. And off camera, what I do is start here. I don't want it straight from the pan. I want it a little bit watery. And I'm just going to put that in dark because I can't really see the shape. Trying to get the black off my brush. I need to fill my brush, which was poor planning on my part. Just pull that out a little bit. And I'm going to use what we call dry brush, which is better done with a real brush, but you can see how it skips a little bit, and I want just a little bit of texture on this pavement. It might be fun to put in the orange bits back here, but I will do that later. I can get a little dry brush with this water brush even. That was a little too dark, so I just wipe off my brush and put some water on it. And blend this in. It's hard to get a silvery color. I tend to just use kind of a blue. And I want some of this a little darker underneath, so I'm going to add kind of a neutral color to get it darker. I didn't put the letters and numbers on, which I can do later. I might do some sky and some of the trees in the background later, but just to save time, what I want to do next is to just ground the aircraft or the subject by putting its shadow in, so it looks less like it is floating on the pavement. And I want to darken that little thing. There is some shadow in here. It's a cloudy day, so there's not a lot. I'm going to call this done for the purposes of this recording and get back to questions and answers and any other comments.